Well, all this week we've been having some special guests in to help us prepare ourselves, our hearts and our minds as we are now in to Passion Week, Holy Week. And I am really honored to have with us today for the first time in the studio, Father Kelly Vandehey. He's the priest at the Sacred Heart Church here in Medford. And we wanted to get the Catholic perspective on this week as well. So, Father Kelly, what a delight to have you with us.
Thank you. It's very good to be here with you this morning.
Yeah, welcome to Medford and all that stuff.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well, this is a big week for all of us, and I know that for you, it started kind of really with Ash Wednesday, right?
Exactly. Exactly.
Explain Lent from your perspective.
Lent, from our perspective, really developed out of this time. It's a special preparation time as we look at bringing people who have expressed interest in becoming Catholic, and so as they would enter into this time of inquiry, it became a special time of preparation for them, learning what the Catholic Church teaches, learning about Jesus Christ, opening themselves. So really the time is meant to be a time of great conversion.
Ah.
And so as that developed, what the Church realized is that this is not only a time for those that we would call catechumens, those who are preparing to enter the Church, but this is a time for all of us to journey together. And our conversion process, as we all know, never stops. We're on this constant journey of conversion. It is how we spend our lives. And so now together we journey with those who are seeking to become Catholic. But it's also looking at ourselves, looking at the areas of our life.
Does the Catholic tradition recognize it literally 40 days from Easter?
I know we have to be a little bit creative about how we count sometimes, because Sundays do not count as part of Lent. So you take Sundays out, and the first 3 days right after Ash Wednesday don't really count, because somehow we get to 40 days.
Well, I had Father Seraphim here from the Orthodox side, and he kind of, the same kind of thing. So it's not a literal 40, but it does kind of recognize 40 days of heart preparation up to... all right, so today is Maundy Thursday. How does the Catholics recognize that?
We recognize that our Lent officially ends as we begin the celebration of the Mass of the Lord's Supper this evening. So today's the last day of Lent? And it officially ends when we begin Mass this evening. And we celebrate the Mass of the Lord's Supper. And there's two things that happen for us during this Mass, or what this Mass signifies for us. One is the institution of the Eucharist. So Jesus Christ giving us his body and blood as we live in this world. But it's also one of the things that we do is the washing of feet.
You actually do. And I noticed a new Pope today in Rome is in a youth correction facility washing the feet of the inmates there.
He is. And what it does is reenact what Jesus did with his disciples as the servant of the servants.
So you actually wash feet?
Yeah, we do. We do.
And you will wash the feet of who?
I will wash the feet. We take members of our community, both men and women, some younger, some older, and it's my way, because as the leader of this parish community, I am to serve the people. And as Jesus gave the disciples an example, that's what my service of washing their feet is to symbolize as well.
That's great.
Yeah. No, it's a very powerful moment. It's very powerful for the priest who's doing it. It's very powerful for the people who are having their feet washed.
I don't think
because it's humbling.
It is. I'm going to say there's nothing more humbling. And of course, foot washing was the recognition of the dirtiness of the trafficking through life. And they got it on their feet. And and Jesus did that after the supper. Is there any significance in that? Because they had supper. They had supper, didn't they?
They did it before. He did it before the supper.
Okay, well, I'm thinking.
Yeah.
He did?
No.
I thought it was after the meal that he took the basin. But anyway, but there is a huge significance in that, because he even washed the foot of Judas.
Exactly.
What does that tell you?
Jesus knew very well what was coming, and he knew very well who was about to betray him. And I was thinking about that in a particular way, especially since Pope Francis was going to the youth correctional facility today to wash the feet. It's the way we look at people and the way that our God looks at us I think oftentimes can be very, very different.
Right.
And you know, and so for the Pope to wash the inmates' feet, you know, in the midst of their struggle, their darkness of life, Jesus did the same for Judas. And
back to Catholic Lent just for a moment. I know that you encourage fasting during that.
We do.
Or maybe the giving up of certain foods and things like that. Where does that come from, and how does that apply? And what do you do with people that can't do that?
The fasting really comes from Matthew's Gospel. Probably makes it most clear that Jesus called the disciples to fast, to pray, and to give alms.
Right.
And so in our Catholic tradition, the fasting is meant for people between the ages of 18 and 59. Now, by the time we get to 59 or 60,
you're clear. No.
I know. Well, we would be clear, but it's now become so ingrained that most will tend to carry it on.
Sure.
But the idea of that is really to call us to a recognition that there are people in our world who continue to suffer. And we can become very comfortable. Fasting is something that everybody can do, no matter our level of wealth or lack thereof.
Right.
It's something that every one of us can do. And coming to that recognition of what it is, you know, we give up something that we enjoy, maybe oftentimes something that really can change our lives. Maybe it's become a habit, a bad habit for us, but to be able to change that, come at it from a different perspective, but also to remind us that, wow, there are people.
And there is a significance of denying the flesh so that the spirit thrives. You know, which is interesting to me. If you don't know if you're addicted to something, try to give it up.
Exactly.
You know,
exactly.
And that would be the test as to whether or not you could lay that down in recognition. Because I think it has such a cleansing, purifying, making you spiritually aware effect as you move towards the Easter day itself.
Right.
Yeah.
The idea is that really we've been called upon to fast at least once a week. We do it in a particular intensified way during Lent.
Did that come back now? I know that the
you know, it never really went away.
The no meat on Friday? The no meat on Friday thing?
That didn't... that went away at some point.
Yeah.
But the call was still to let go of something.
Okay.
You know, and it didn't necessarily have to be on Friday.
Yeah.
We do Friday because that's the day the Lord died on the cross,
right.
and so that's the significance of that attachment to Friday. But no, it's really an invitation just to be mindful of what happened on that day, but also be mindful of our brothers and sisters.
Are there any special services you recognize this week? I mean, you'll have your foot washing tonight. What will you do tomorrow?
Tomorrow we're doing a number of things, actually. There's only one that is really called for by the liturgy of the Church. But at noon tomorrow, we will have the Stations of the Cross, which we do weekly, every Friday evening during the course of Lent. So we will have the Stations of the Cross, just kind of moving from each station, the 14 stations, and a prayer with each one of those. And then from 1 o'clock till about 2:30 or so, we're going to do an ecumenical service, 7 last words. And so there are a group of us, ministers and Christian ministers in Medford, get together monthly, and so we decided that we were going to do the 7 last words. So 7 of us ministers each took one of these phrases of Jesus as he was hanging upon the cross, and we're going to just share our faith, our reflection of what this word, what this phrase says to me spiritually. And then that'll be followed by a reflection song.
Will that be at your parish?
At our parish, yeah, at Sacred Heart Parish, yeah.
And that'll be at
1 o'clock.
1 o'clock tomorrow. It's open to the public?
It is, sure.
Okay.
And then at 3 o'clock we'll do our first Good Friday service, which is we have the proclamation of the Passion of Christ from the Gospel of John. And then there's 10 intercessory prayers, which are very, very long. They're kind of long prayers, but they're universal prayers for just kind of our world and the needs of our world today. And then we follow that with the veneration of the cross, recognizing the glory of the cross, especially on Good Friday. And then we have Holy Communion. It's not a Mass, so we're not consecrating the Eucharist. Any hosts that we distribute tomorrow will be consecrated at Mass this evening.
Okay. And then Sunday, what do you do?
Well, on Saturday is really our big day.
Oh, really?
Saturday is because we celebrate the Easter Vigil, and for the Catholic Church, that is the heart of our liturgical year. It's this vigil, it's this expectancy of the resurrection of Christ early Sunday morning. But it's the evening, our Mass, where we will proclaim a number of scriptures from the Old Testament that kind of lead us into this understanding our freedom from slavery, or our freedom from the slavery of sin. Looking at the life of the Israelites and leaving Egypt and all of that. But we start that with
what time on Saturday is that?
That begins at 8:30.
Okay.
And so it's calling forth the light, and so we have our Easter candle. We light the new Easter candle, which really symbolically during the Easter season is the presence of Christ, the light of the world. And
fascinating.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, Father Kelly, I want to talk to him about the new Pope and some other things going on. So stick around. We'll be right back. Well, we're continuing on with our series this week, and especially today. Here it is, Maundy Thursday, and just so honored to have with us today Father Kelly Vandehey is with us. He's the new priest, well, not really that new, but he's here, priest at the Sacred Heart Church in Medford. How long have you been there now?
Just a year and 10 months. Almost.
Right after Carey,
right. Mm-hmm.
Now Bishop Carey.
Yes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. We're talking about the Catholic traditions on this week and where they are, and I did not know that Saturday night's your big service.
Yeah.
I didn't. Yeah. I never connected the dots on that.
Yeah, partly because it happens at such an odd time.
8:30, and you're going to go for a couple of hours.
8:30, and we're probably not going to finish until 11 or so. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
And you do baptisms?
We baptize adults, those who have not been baptized prior and are now entering into Christianity and coming into the Catholic Church. So we will baptize them, and then we will confirm them in the Catholic faith, and they will receive First Eucharist. And those who are in the process, or who are converting, have been baptized in another Christian denomination, oftentimes spouses of Catholics who are now becoming Catholic, and so they will make a profession of faith. We will confirm them, and they will receive First Eucharist as well.
All right, you got a new Pope.
We have a new Pope.
What do you think?
I am enjoying him immensely. He's
he's so out of the box.
He is, and the challenge of that, I can only imagine the challenge for those in Rome who have gotten very used to certain ways of doing things.
Right.
And he steps in, and he just has a very, very just fresh look at how things are, every time he does something, it calls me back to the friend of his at the moment of his election who leaned over to him and said, "Do not forget the poor." Mm. And everything he is doing is manifesting that very, very much.
He seems to be unusual in that, I mean, he's not even Pope 24 hours. He leaves the Vatican, he goes down, pays his own hotel bill. Today, on Maundy Thursday, he's at the youth correctional place there in Rome. He's washing the feet of these kids and these young juveniles, which is so interesting. I just read where he's decided not to live in the Pope's palace, so to speak. Exactly. He's going to live in just 2 common rooms there in the Vatican. Yeah. What's that telling you?
Partly it says something about his personality and what he needs to kind of continue his own growth and this walk of faith for him. Certainly he sees something important about staying connected to the people. He's celebrating Mass every morning in the Domus Chapel of this really the Vatican hotel that he is living in, and these are the workers, these are the gardeners and the cleaners, and he's with them. He's with the people, and
he's chosen to wear a hand-carved cross that was given to him in Argentina, and not one of the more ornate ones, which is another symbol of his common. No.
It's probably a reality coming from what we would still probably call a third world country. Buenos Aires, by far, is not so third world, but just his relationship with the people and the struggles of the people of Latin America in general. He has connected with the people who have struggled.
There's a couple things. You go back to Pope John Paul, who was I guess now he's on the track to sainthood, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
But what was interesting to me, he seemed to attract so many young people.
Yes.
He dies, here comes Pope Benedict the 16th, and they thought, uh-oh, we're going to lose this connection, but it didn't happen. In fact, the young people continue to grow and come to the church. And then you got an incredible time in history where we've never seen a pope resign, 600 years. You get a new one, so now you have a pope emeritus. I'm not sure how that all works out. I mean, I don't know what all that means, but...
we don't either.
Well, that was my question.
We're all finding all of this out as well, because the 600 years ago, when a pope resigned, it was for a very, very different purpose. Because it was a time that there were 2 or 3 popes, and he was trying to kind of bring the church back together to stop a schism from happening. And,
well, technically, does former Pope Benedict XVI subordinate totally to Pope Francis?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
As will our Archbishop as of Tuesday, this coming Tuesday
he's stepping down
at 2 o'clock or 3 o'clock or so. He becomes Archbishop Emeritus of the Archdiocese of Portland. And so the hierarchy switches, and we will have a new Archbishop, and Archbishop Vlasny, the current Archbishop, will be subject to Archbishop Sample.
The whole hierarchy is kind of fascinating, but you know what's interesting is that I guess Pope Francis was still number 2 in vote count when they elected Pope Benedict.
Well, that's certainly the word.
You never really know.
Well, it's interesting that anybody would know that, because the Pope, the cardinals, as they enter the conclave, all make this promise of silence, and so anything that happens in there probably we're not supposed to know. But but our human nature does take over. And word comes out.
Life is life. Cardinal Donan, what do you think? Has he got I mean, I guess he was on the list.
Well, he was certainly from the world's perspective. It would be interesting, just to be a fly on the wall in a conclave, but because kind of as we see things from outside, kind of living in the world and certainly living in this country, and we think about the possibility of ever having a pope from the United States, there's an attraction for us, and certainly among the cardinals in this country, he's certainly the most personable, and
yet he oversaw one of the most controversial times in the history of the church with all of those scandals that went on, and he had to ride that out.
Exactly.
And he did a good job.
And he did.
Have you ever met a pope?
I never met.
It would have been
Pope John Paul.
Or Benedict.
John Paul. Right after I finished studies, my church law studies in Washington, D.C., and at the end of that, we had a trip to Rome. And we were meeting all of the various congregations, people we would be working with as canon lawyers. And so we had the opportunity to be at an audience, the Wednesday audience with the Pope. And so they moved all of us who had just graduated with our canon law degree around the back of his chair in St. Peter's Square. And we had our picture taken. And I have a very nice picture of my eyes up. And all of my classmates and the Pope in the foreground,
What is a canon lawyer? What do you do?
Canon lawyer is our church is structured. It really kind of comes out of Jewish law in many ways, because the Jewish tradition is really, there's a lot of laws in the Jewish tradition. But so too in our Catholic Church. We now have, in 1983, our Code of Canon Law was revised, and there are now 1,752 canons or laws that govern our church. And a lot of them are laws that we would just live out by our normal way of living. But really the law was developed by various bishops having questions, and so they would send a letter to the Pope or to the Vatican and seek a response, and the Vatican would respond. Well, after a period of time, if you don't codify all of that, if you don't bring it all together, you run the risk of giving different decisions to different places.
So in some way you're a guardian of the doctrine.
Well, not so much. In a way, the Code of Canon Law really is kind of the legal aspect of our church teaching. So, so it would, when we talk about the sacraments, say, for example, baptism, what is it that is constitutive? What is required for baptism? Well, there's the pouring on of water, and I baptize you in the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Well, that's an official law. Well, we do that. We don't think about that as being a law, but it's a practice. It is our doctrine. This is what needs to happen for a baptism. And so it codifies, it puts into law.
The Catholic Church has taken a really strong stand on some of the very controversial social issues, which I commend you for, and yet now you're under the microscope again with some of the proposed healthcare laws in this country. Do you see any chink in the armor, or do you think you guys are solid and you're going to hang in there?
We're going to hang in there. I mean, Archbishop Vlasny, he had a very, very good way of saying it just a few weeks ago. So many times, and when we look at when the church and politics come together, and they just do.
Yeah.
I mean, it happened in the time of Christ.
Yeah.
They come together, in our faith. We have a particular ideal before us, and that is what we truly want to find. That's what we would like to see. But the reality is that it's going to be a process of getting there. And so maybe rather than digging our heels in so deeply, we're going to take, okay, this little thing really was something that worked in our favor, so we're going to take it. It was not all that we wanted, but it was a piece of something that helps.
So to you, it's moving the ball forward.
Exactly, okay. Exactly. It may not be as quickly as we want it. We may not get everything we want, but our goal really is to profess what it is we believe and to stand by that. And
well, I'm almost out of time, so let me just highlight. You have a foot washing service tonight.
Yep.
You have how many services tomorrow?
We have,
you got 3 tomorrow?
Well, there are three different services. There's actually more than that because we do one in Spanish as well. But, so we have the Stations of the Cross at noon.
Okay.
7 Last Words ecumenical prayer service at 1.
At 1.
And then 3 o'clock is our first Good Friday service with the Veneration of the Cross and the reading of the Passion.
Okay.
We do another one of those at 5, and then we do another one at 7 in Spanish.
Okay. All right, and then the big one?
The Easter Vigil, 8:30.
On Saturday night.
On Saturday evening.
And that's probably going to go to about 11.
That'll be about 2.5 hours. And then Sunday, Easter Sunday, our regular Mass schedule.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's very interesting. Well, thanks for coming in and helping us with this, because it's, I think what's happened, I'm passionate about putting the passion back into this week. I think we have just allowed it to just kind of slip through our hands, In fact, we had a report today that only 58% of the evangelicals are planning to attend a Easter service, and only 57% of the Catholics. What's that tell you?
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean,
and the fact that spring break adds
well,
another challenge for us. There are no excuses. It does add another challenge, without a doubt.
Well, Father Kelly, nice to have you with us. Come back often, will you?
Thank you.
And best to you, and I appreciate you taking time to help us get a better handle. We have our differences, but not enough to say that we can't get together.
Exactly. We believe in Christ.
Yeah, amen. Blessings on you.
Thank you. Blessings to you too.
Happy Easter to you all.
Thank you.